So welcome. We wanted to do a very quick Facebook Live. I'm Dr. Elena.
I'm Dr. Kelly.
Pure Pediatrics. So one of the big questions we get asked all the time, and at least I get asked all the time, is sleep.
Yes.
I will say from a health perspective, like your sleep, your child's sleep, your baby's sleep is incredibly important.
Yes.
And I think that we probably don't get enough sleep, and a lot of it is because we're awake all night with our infants. So we thought, at least for this sleep discussion, we were just going to touch on a few kind of tips that we used as parents of 7. I have 4. She has 3. Most of mine are on the wall behind us. And, you know, the tips that we had for ourselves with sleep, and especially doctors, you know, we're tired anyway. And so for us, it was important that our kids, quote, sleep trained. I kind of hate that term sleep trained because I don't think you can actually teach a baby to sleep. They kind of have to figure it out a little bit on their own. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
So I thought we'd start with Dr. Kelly saying what she did for her kids. And then I'll tell you what the advice I normally give my parents, which I will fully admit is a bit of the tough love approach, but you go first.
Yeah, so, you know, with my first one, I was really relaxed and wanted to kind of take it easy and let him do what he wanted to do. And then after I did the sleep training and had him in his own bed and was able to go to sleep in my own bed without him, it was like a miracle had happened. So then with my second and third, it was much easier for me to make that decision early on, like, oh, you know, you're 4 months now and I know you can sleep through the night, and you've obviously shown me you can sleep through the night. You know, we're gonna make sure that you're in your own bed all the time, every time. And you know, those 2 or 3 nights of crying don't compare at all to what you get afterwards of like wonderful sleep. And I mean, they get sick and other things happen, maybe you move, and there's always adjustments that have to take place, but I feel like before and after,
yeah, I mean,
it's a huge improvement.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few, I feel like, life changers that I always thought of when I thought of my kids. And my youngest is 12, so to put that in perspective. And so we didn't have the internet for most of my children, actually, which was kind of helpful too. But there's only a few life-changing moments when your kids are little. Sleeping through the night, potty trained, not needing a booster seat, or like a regular booster seat, like for me that was life-changing, and wiping their own butt.
Yes.
I mean, like, man, you accomplished this for, and they're ready for college. If you're
yes,
lucky.
my 6-year-old, he's done.
Yeah.
It's like,
Whoop. All he has to do now is make it through high school and like straight to college. Anyway, but you do have to survive that beginning step. So I'll tell you what I did, and I always preface this with my own patients with my older children were born in the 90s. We don't need to talk about how old my kids are, but I'll tell you the 90s were a little bit different. We didn't have one major thing that we have today, and that's the internet. So we really went into our pediatrician. We really actually did listen to their advice. And the best advice I ever got was, if you're not waking up in the middle of the night to have steak, why are you giving your child steak in the middle of the night? Because a lot of parents, even after the baby weighs enough and is big enough to actually sleep through the night, as soon as the baby cries, like, they feed the baby. So I kind of tell my parents, it's kind of like eating milk and cookies in the middle of the night. Like, so if you're not eating milk and cookies, like, do they need milk and cookies? So most babies, though, they start to rely on this idea of, you know, I wake up, I'm not sure what to do. And even more important is, like, if they fall asleep always at the breast or in a rocking chair, when they wake up in their crib, they're kind of like, how did I get here? So it's kind of like you falling asleep on the couch and someone moving you to your bed, and you wake up going, oh, wait, this isn't what I last remembered. And I think for some babies, that's a little disconcerting. So having a very specific routine, and I will say consistency is key, and it almost doesn't matter what you do, as long as you and whoever else is in your house are all on board and have the exact same plan.
routine, yes.
So if, say, for example, one parent's like, oh, I just can't handle crying it out, then this won't work. So, you know, come up with a plan. It doesn't matter what the plan is, to be honest, but be really consistent with that plan. And so for me and my husband, who are both doctors, we were all in, On the 3 months, weighed about 12 pounds. Okay, we love you, good night. So what we did, for example, our youngest Alexia, who was our toughest infant, when she, we felt she was big enough, she definitely weighed enough. She was a chunky monkey, love her to death. She's a good eater though. And, we were like, she doesn't need to eat in the middle of the night anymore. So, we decided that it was time for her to go ahead and sleep on her own in her crib. So we had this little routine, and, we went through all the motions of feeding and taking the bath, always the same routine. And then we went into her room, we put her into her crib. By this age, she wasn't swaddling anymore because she was quick out of that swaddle. And, so we make sure the bed is safe. And then we sang her a little song that we made up ourselves. It was called Long Neck. Later I'll teach the song maybe. So we taught her the Long Neck song, and she would just look at us while she laid there. And then we'd reach in and we both would give her a kiss, and we'd say, okay. And then we'd say, good night. But when we said good night, we didn't say good night and then I'll see you in 5 minutes because you're going to whimper the minute I leave. It was a very definitive good night. And it's kind of a different tone of voice, at least we did. We're like, good night. Turned around, walked out the room, shut the door. My husband, who owned earplugs, put it right in because he knew he needed a little bit. It was like nails on the chalkboard. Oh, we had the little baby monitor and we turned off the volume, but we could see her. And she did. She had a little fit and she was like, what do I do? And then she fell asleep. And then when she'd wake up, because she'd already known she could fall asleep, it was easier for her to fall back asleep. And so our kids got to that same routine. The second night, quicker. By the third night, we went and said, love you, kiss, kiss, good night. And Alexi said, ooh. And then we shut the door and we didn't hear her peep. And she rolled and she went to sleep. And so for us, and the other thing I will tell you, my children have never, ever, ever in their life ended up in our bed. And for us, that was also very successful. And everyone's different on that. Some parents are like, sure, come on in. But in order for them to sleep all night, I think it's really hard if they're in the same bed as you. One, the American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't recommend it for infants because it's for safe sleep. But more importantly, it's just once they see you, their heart rate goes up and they're kind of stimulated like, hey, no. And, and then what happens is when they eat in the middle of the night, they're kind of relying on getting milk drunk to make them drowsy and fall back to sleep. So instead, we felt like, nope, they go to sleep and we come to them in the morning. And so all of our kids really just got into this routine of once we put them down, we went and got them when it was time. And so as they get older, it's this, they also learn, and they would just sit up in their crib 6 months onward and play, just kind of look around. And once they were 9 months, we'd come in and they were just standing there waiting. So for us, this worked, and even with what I would call our most difficult infant, Alexis, who we loved dearly, but boy, she was a very colicky infant. And so for us, that's what worked, and that's the advice I usually give my parents. I will say most first-time parents are like, that's great, that's solid advice, definitely not doing that. I'm like, all right. By 14 months, they're like, tell us more about that. And by normally the second child, they're like, how soon?
Let's do it now.
How soon can we get to this sleep idea? So, but that's normal, I think, for new parents. Yeah. And even when you have a gap, say like a long time between kids, sometimes you kind of almost like a new parent again, and you kind of forget some of these things. But just remember, babies and children like structure. So it doesn't really matter the method you choose. Online, there's a million different ways to do this. It almost doesn't matter as long as you're just really consistent. So that was my strategy when my kids were little and infants.
And if you're more of a sensitive, oh, I don't want to hear my baby cry, they have these coaches, because maybe you want exactly how many minutes you have to leave your baby crying for, or you want to just know okay, I can do this for 1 week. There are places online that you can find those resources and have somebody kind of encourage you along the whole way if you're like, I can't do it, I can't leave my baby. I understand. It's hard.
It
but
is.
it's really so much better on the other side, I promise you.
Oh yeah, it's life changing.
And the longer you wait, you know, the harder it is because they can say mommy, they can like really throw those big fits instead of just like the crying 3-month-old, 4-month-old, you know, then they are really like throwing themselves around.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even by 9 months, you have someone who can sit up, stand up, and cry for a long time. And so we actually had a sleep expert who came to the office several years ago. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And he gave a lecture to a group of all these moms who looked really not rested. And he said, you know, at the average time, like a 9-month-old or over 9 months can scream if you cry it out. And it was like 5 hours. It was like they can impressively scream. And I can tell you, like, if they're past 12 months, not only can they scream, they can scream so much they throw up.
And then you're cleaning vomit.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, for me, I was always more of, and thank goodness, like I said, I didn't have the internet, so I just kind of went with the advice and was like, okay, great, sleep training sounds great. Younger, for me, was better than when they're screaming and mommy. And then, you know, in general, your kids are all going to have sleep regressions anyway, and so it's and when you travel,
start with a very good base.
Yeah, so like when you travel, like it all goes, you're like you know, and then especially if you go international or even just across the country. I mean, travel messes it up because now they're in like a playpen, or if they're older, that's the only time our kids have been in a bed with us is like in a hotel room. Miserable. I mean, we had to flip coins to see who would take the youngest because she's a kicker. And so anyway, and so you have to realize they're gonna have sleep regressions, and that's normal. Don't freak out. I mean, the only thing you can do wrong is freak out, because it turns out, you know. And then if you actually hear a cry from your child, that sounds different. Like, I do feel like there's different sounds, and as parents we get this gestalt of, okay, no, that sounds like pain, or that sounds like, please go to your child.
Right. Yes.
I mean, if your child is sick and you think you have fever, no, it's not the time.
Yes, don't cry them out when they're sick.
Right. I mean, you know, because they could, or if you feel like they might be injured or something else. But in general, and so I was more of a cry it out parent. I'm very honest about it. My kids turned out okay, but everyone's different, and there's a million ways to skin a cat. And so don't worry about mom guilt or parent guilt or any of those things. Do what's best for you. And so you can, you know, take some of our tips or look for some resources online. And I agree, there's a lot of like sleep coaches out there, and that's what all they do is help train kids and little babies, and help parents who look like they're really tired.
Yeah.
So anyway, for more tips, maybe we'll try to include a couple of links. But if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of us or leave a comment. We're kind of slow at responding, but we will respond. Anything else you can think of to add?
No.
Happy dreams, sweet dreams.
Yeah, get some good sleep.
Good luck.
You can do it.
Yeah. Every day, I'm so glad my youngest is 12, so like not dealing with this. Anyway, if you have anything else or another topic you'd like us to touch on, please let us know too. All right, thanks. Have a great day. See you later.
Bye.